Thank you for inviting me to testify today on the Biden administration's waste, fraud, and abuse at the Department of Homeland Security. We at America First Legal have spent the last 4 years educating the American public on this topic, and I'm honored to share some of our findings and results with you. The Biden administration's cavalier attitude towards the law was on full display in the way that it approached immigration policy, where, at the direction of President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas, DHS failed to faithfully execute the laws and even actively created barriers to law enforcement. Among the administration's many abuses, none is worse, in my view, than its abuse of the parole authority. Congress empowered the executive branch to use its discretion on a case-by-case basis in compelling exigent circumstances to temporarily admit otherwise inadmissible aliens when doing so is necessary for an urgent humanitarian reason or a significant public benefit. Yet from this limited, qualified, and individualized authority of last resort, the Biden administration created whole programs completely disregarding all of the constraints imposed by Congress and using it as a primary authority to indiscriminately admit millions of people. One of these programs was the CBP-1 app. Now, when you or I arrive at a border or a port of entry, we have to show our documents, whether it's a passport, a driver's license, a visa, or some other document showing that we are entitled to enter the country. But with the CBP-1 app, the last administration said forget all of that, and illegal aliens, lacking any basis or authority under the law to enter the country, were allowed to make an appointment, show up at a port of entry, and walk in the front door. It wasn't even catch and release, as Ms. Taylor Greene said. It was literally show up and walk in. According to Secretary Noem, more than 1 million people entered the country this way. AFL applauds DHS's announcement yesterday that going forward, they're going to repurpose this app for their removal efforts. Other parole programs, which I touch on in my more detail in my written testimony, are the CHNV, a program so rife with fraud that the administration actually paused it of its own volition for nearly a month, and the parole in place. Now, parole in place was particularly egregious, and AFL took the administration to court and won, stopping this program in its tracks. Through these 3 parole programs, the last administration attempted to bestow legal status on 2.6 million illegal aliens. For context, that is more than the population of 15 U.S. states and the equivalent of the population of the United States' 3rd largest city of Chicago. And where the Biden administration could not make an argument under existing law, it simply endeavored to rewrite the law. One such example is the 2022 Asylum Officer Rule, which gave USCIS asylum officers the duties of immigration judges, leading to AFL founder and president Stephen Miller at the time calling it the most extreme immigration regulation ever proposed. Last is the issue of interior enforcement. And while removals were statistically non-existent during the Biden administration, its attitude towards ICE was even more pernicious than that. Under the Biden administration, DHS implemented policies that proactively made it harder for ICE agents to take the routine enforcement actions against the worst of the worst. Under the ironically named Priorities Memo, for example, DHS required ICE agents to seek pre-approval from Washington, D.C. headquarters for every proposed enforcement action for almost all of 2021. Records obtained by AFL show how ridiculous this policy was, resulting in nearly 60,000 requests by field agents to do their job. This is 60,000 enforcement actions against gang members, cartel members, murderers, arsonists, traffickers, rapists, and violent individuals that were slowed down or delayed because trained ICE enforcement officers had to go to a desk, write out a justification, and get pre-approval from DC to do their job. The story of the Biden administration's DHS cannot be told without emphasizing just how wasteful and abusive its policies were of taxpayer resources. From willfully ignoring the law, to attempting to rewrite it, to actively erecting roadblocks to block law enforcement, every Biden-era DHS immigration policy can be categorized as waste, fraud, or abuse. Thank you, and I look forward to answering your questions.